if you've got a mouse that's got a buttons on it that can be remapped, I always bind one to control, I always bind one to shift, and then it helps me set things up like I'm about to. So if we go into options and key bindings, and then I go into quick keybind mode. So what I basically do, my main action bar, we use Q, Control Q, Shift Q. Then we use E, Control E, Shift E. Then we use R, Control R, Shift R. And then we use F, Control F, Shift F. Into the top bars, I'll use Control W, Shift W. Control A, Shift A. Control S, Shift S. Control D, Shift D. C, Control C, and Shift C. The reason I do it this way is because I play a lot of different characters, and what I've tried to do is standardise the different abilities that I put onto the bars. So for example, Q is always my opener. E is always the one that I spam because that feels quite comfortable under my fingers. Control Q, Shift Q, Control E, Shift E are just variations on normal attacks. The R key tends to be things like the execute, the big hit, the thing that you build your combo points up for. Control R and Shift R, additional abilities that boost damage. F, Control F and Shift F tend to be things for class specific. So for example, if I'm a rogue, I'll have stealth on F. I also have stealth for druids on F. That just helps where you have got differences in classes, but you know that if it's something specific to that class, it's probably going to be around the F key. Control W and Shift W tend to be movement aiding, because W's my move forward key anyway, so tapping Control or Shift while I'm pressing it, so things like charge, or if you're a druid, I have my sprint and stuff on there, or rogue sprint, for example. Control A is always my interrupt. Shift A is always my stun, so I have interrupt and stun both on A, just under different key bindings. Control S and Shift S tend to be crowd control things, if I'm moving backwards, or things where I want to like disengage, or I might want to sheep something, or I might want to cast repentance or something. Control D and Shift D tend to be my self heals, and then C, Control C and Shift C are the the AoE abilities. What I'll then do is I'll create up here a control space and a shift space. Don't know how that's going to work in this version of WoW, but that's basically for my mount. So I'll generally have one bound to a ground mount and one bound to a fly mount, and then I'll have a middle mouse button, which is my burst DPS, and a control middle mouse button, which is for any kind of turtle macros or turtling abilities that I've got. And I've found that by doing that, I can basically use the same template pretty much every character. So what I'll do now is I'll build out the Retribution Paladin following that sequence. Right then, so for my Pally, based on what I've just said in terms of the standard template, let's go through the abilities and build it out. So the spell book in War Within is actually stored now within your talents. It's all in the same UI, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to go top to bottom on all these abilities and then kind of show you where I would fill it out. So, Blessing of Freedom, that is something that for a Paladin I put on Control S. It breaks crowd control if I'm in PvP or in instances, so Control and S feels natural. You'd kind of be backing away a little bit, even though you shouldn't walk backwards too much. That feels okay. Hand of Reckoning is a taunt. I don't really use that for Retribution. Sense Undead I don't really use. Divine Shield is Divine Shield is a Paladin specific ability. It's basically the bubble. So class specifics go onto F. That is a Resurrection. I just put that over onto a bar. I don't actually need a key binding for that one. Shield of the Righteous, I don't use in this spec. Divine Steed, so that's a movement enhancer, so that goes on Control W. Judgment is always my opener, goes on to Q. Word of Glory is my main self-heal, Control D. Flash of Light is my backup self-heal, Shift D. Lay on Hands, I'll put at the top left-hand side, just as a no crap button, but I don't need a binding on it. Hammer of Justice is my stun, so that goes on to Shift A. Rebuke is the interrupt, goes on to Control A. Hammer of Wrath is the execute ability, so that goes on to R. Redemption is another resurrection, so that goes over onto the side. And then into specific retribution skill. So Blade of Justice, I put that on Shift Q, so it's part of my opening rotation, but I don't use it. In fact, that's wrong. Control Q for Blade of Justice. So it's there with Q and Control Q for when I'm fighting. Divine Protection is part of the oh crap button, so that goes on to Control Middle Mouse. Divine Storm is the main AoE, so that goes on to the C key. I'm going to the next page. Final Reckoning is a big DPS boost. So I'll pop that onto Control R. Justicar's Vengeance is my E key, so that's the one that I'll spam whenever it's up. Shield of Vengeance is another defensive ability, so that goes up there. So that pretty much covers the basics. When I'm moving forwards, if I tap Control, I get the movement ability. So when I'm moving quickly through instances and such, nice and easy to find. Control A for interrupt, Shift A for stun. Blessing of Freedom, tap backwards, hit the Control key. I've got my self-heals on Control D and Shift D. Divine Storm on C when I built up enough points to AoE. And then my opener, my follow-up, spam, execute, and then a big DPS boost. So that's it. That's basically using the template that I've talked about for Retribution Paladin. So if you've got any thoughts or comments, leave them below. I'll get straight back to you.